Okay.
हाँ, एक तो मेरा पायसम, you remember that Great Dane? I just want you to check him. मुझे लग रहा है उसका एक hind leg में बड़ा problem आ रहा है, and he's having some whether the kidney or what, I don't know. You'll have to check. दूसरा, we've got this little baby monkey who came to the shelter completely electrocuted. We managed to save her, but I want the orthopedic guy in Safdarjung said he may be able to do some prosthetic, but पहले उसकी surgery करवानी पड़ेगी. So I would like to bring her, if you can check her, Dr. Saab, and decide when we, if it is possible, when you, if you can do it, whatever, and then we can take a call on that.
Tomorrow 11:30.
11:30 I'll be there. Thank you. See you. Bye. I think human beings as a species, we are cruel. And I don't say it because I don't like human beings. That's not true. But I just find, as I'm working increasingly, and the work with women and children showed me this, but also my work with animals has made it very clear to me that we must be I think we are a very unevolved species. I think we have a lot to learn from the rest of the universe, instead of just thinking that we are above everyone and sitting like that, sitting on judgment on everyone. Look at the way we are. We must be the only species that kills for pleasure, maims for pleasure, hurts for pleasure. Animals don't do it. The way we treat animals, look how we kill them, the manner in which we kill them. We are just, I don't know, it's really sad to think of us as being, we claim to be superior. I don't see that. Every day of my life I don't see it. Payasam was one of the earlier dogs we got at the sanctuary. He was brought to us at All Creatures Great and Small because he had been found tied to a tree and left tied to a tree with a terrible anal prolapse. And we were told that he had been sexually abused by 3 men. So they were just seen tying him to this tree and taking off. They were never caught. He was for the longest time in a very bad condition, and it took us about 1.5 years and 7 surgeries before he became okay. And to me it's amazing that an animal that had been treated like that can trust human beings again. But he is so wonderful. He's an incredible dog to have, and he's been with me now for 7 years. So it's, so I'm assuming he may have been 1 year or 2 when he came to me. So he's becoming an old man. But a very loving, trusting animal. The cruelty of human beings is beyond belief. And to me, nothing epitomizes that more than the life of Bulbul, this lovely little horse who came to me when she was barely 3 feet off the ground. She came to me blinded, and I still, when I think about it, I still get goosebumps, because to me it's amazing that we human beings can do what was done to her. There were 2 groups of people who reared horses, and they got into a fight. So one group, to get out at the income of another, blinded this little pony. And when she came to me for the first 6 months, I had to keep her inside the stable. We never keep any of our animals inside. And she wouldn't let anyone come near her. We could just barely put her food in, clean the place and come out. And the moment the person would go near her, she would get absolutely scared and run around and hit against the wall. And so then I didn't know what to do. And this is, how you live and learn. I said, okay, what is scaring her is human beings, so we need to make her realize that human beings can also be kind. So everyone who came over here in those days I used to request them to stand outside this table and read to her, just read from a book, or just talk, or just sing. Those people who could sing, I would tell them to sing. And it's so funny, after 6 months of doing that, she started coming out slowly on her own. And now she's all over the place. So she, she runs around, she roams around, there's no problem, there's no fear of human beings anymore. More recently, we had this horrifying experience of seeing a little baby monkey who we named Leila, who was brought to us by one of the villagers. She was electrocuted and both her hind legs and one arm is absolutely burnt, and she will have to have amputations on both legs and the arm. So I guess she's going to end up just living at home with me because I can't imagine what else to do, right? Then for me it's also the spirit of animals. I look at this little puppy who can't walk, but he is learning how to raise his body off the ground with his 2 front legs, and he runs around and he has an incredible spirit and urge to live. So it's incredible how much we can learn from animals. All the dogs we have here, we have over 400 dogs now. Many of them are blind, many of them are maimed, many of them don't have legs, either 1 or 2. And clearly there's so much of cruelty, especially in cities, I find. Of course, in rural areas, no one cares. I started, I thought only about dogs. And then, because we're in a very rural area, other animals started coming to us and we kind of grew organically. But clearly the criteria for this place is animals in distress. Animals who can no longer manage on their own. So we have a lot of blind animals, a lot of disabled animals, a lot of animals who have been abandoned, like dogs, pets. Because once people abandon pets, they can't manage on the street. And street dogs who are blind, who are maimed, who are so old that they can't manage on the street anymore. We've had animals who have gone through horrible experiences, animals who have been sexually abused, which is why me, who has worked against Section 377 all my life, I'm so glad that Section 377 still exists, because that's the only law under which animals who are abused can get some justice. So it's really interesting to see how the same law helps in one case and hinders in another. If people want to help out, clearly one thing is, of course, the resources, right? But more than that, it's the people can come and volunteer. Young people can come and see this place and talk about what they learn here with their friends, because compassion and caring are something that all of us need to learn. It doesn't come so naturally to us. And I think when we spend time with animals like these, whether we like it or not, we do become more compassionate. We do become more empathetic. Not only with animals, but also with human beings. So I think it would be great if young people came here, spent time, got to know what the issues were, and also realized that nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything is interconnected. For example, if we look at the whole issue of plastic, today our country is I think suffering from this the kind of garbage that we see around us. None of us are conscious, none of us are making any effort, and we are expecting that someone else will do it or the government will do it. But we all need to start with ourselves. Can we stop buying anything in plastic bags? Can we stop rolling down our window and throwing something out of a car or out of a bus? Can we do small things like taking our own bottles and our own glasses? So, the moment, so many of us see cows on the road. Every cow that you see on the road today in our country is a plastic cow. It is full of plastic. And I'm saying this because we've had to do a few surgeries here, ruminotomies, to remove plastic from the cow's bellies and bull's bellies. One cow we took out 65 kilos. A small bull, he must be about barely 6 months or a year. We took out 35 or 40 kilos of garbage. And unlike dogs, cows can't open anything. So they eat everything. So in that cow's stomach we found blades, syringes, needles, all kinds of things. So, and they die really horrible, awful deaths, right? So think of the cycle. Think what we're doing to the soil. Of course, all of the chemicals, the pesticides, all of that is also there. So that's what made me think about organic farming. And I'm amazed at how the soil has responded to what we've done in the last 4-5 years. So unless we as human beings realize that we have a responsibility to take care of this earth, to take care of everything on this planet, we are not going to be able to survive as a species that much longer. I think that all of us in our own way can make a difference. For example, in my car I always have lots of cloth bags. I always keep a plate and a glass so that even if I'm going to buy something from the street, I'll buy it in that plate instead of getting it in the plastic bags. It's a little bit of an effort, but I think all of us can do this little bit of an effort because we must become responsible for what we are doing to our environment and stop expecting someone else to make that difference. Because if we need to do this ourselves, and each one of us in our own way can do it. Growing up, I always wanted to be a vet. I've always loved animals, and I think animals have been a part of our life. My parents have always had animals. We've always been taught to love them, to care for them. I remember my father, every time, my father was in the Air Force, and every time we got posted, we had to drive, all of us. Because my father said the only way we would learn about our country was by driving. It was the more we traveled, the more we'd learn about our country. And every time it used to be, I remember it was an ambassador, and our first car was an ambassador, and all of us would be, 3 of us, 3 kids and 2 dogs. That's my first memory of traveling. My entire family have been animal lovers, all of us luckily. So my dream was to be a vet. I always wanted to be a vet till I came to class 10 and I realized I couldn't do those dissections. I just couldn't bear to cut up that frog and that earthworm and that cockroach. So then I said, okay, there go my dreams of ever becoming a vet. But there must be something in the blood, because my father's father was at the Madras Veterinary College. He was a professor. So we've always had animals as part of our lives. So that was one dream that I didn't accomplish. But that's okay. There are other things that one did, and one is, at least now I'm able to take care of them in another way. I think if I've become the kind of human being I've become today, it's because of the kind of care and love and values that my parents taught me. I can't. They were a very unusual set of people. My mother, her name was Usha, was from Punjab, which is now in Pakistan. And my father was a Tamil Brahmin from Chennai. So, in those days Madras, I still can't think of it as Chennai. So, so you can well imagine in those days, I'm talking about early 50s, that's when they met and they decided to get married. And obviously there was a lot of resistance, but they still did it. And I think their journey, their story, the way they taught us to respect and care about diversity. They had gay friends growing up. We grew up around, which was now when I think it must have been bizarre, but for us. Well, today Naz is what it is. At least we have a roof on our heads, and it is because of my brother Vijay, who we used to call Viju, who was a doctor. He died in 2002, and before dying, it was interesting. One thing he said, and he actually, I had to bring back his dog and cat with me. That was my first Great Dane Brutus. And
Name of the dog?
Brutus. That was Brutus who came back with me, and Goofy the cat. And before dying, he actually went and brought the carrier for him himself, saying he has to travel in this and this and that. He was a multi-organ transplant surgeon himself, working in the US. And before dying, when he was making his will, he said, you know what, I'm going to give some money to Naz, because you fight with government all the time and you fight with the whole world. No one's ever going to give you anything. And we need to secure these children. So he gave money so that we could buy a permanent home. And this home was built, by the time we moved in, I think it was 2006 or something. But the home was started in 2001 because in 2000, someone brought a child who was about, I think, 5 or 6, 4 or 5, and left this child in the office in Naz, which used to be on the first floor of my house at that time, and in Gulmoor Park. And I'd never wanted to do anything with children in particular. I was not at that time very interested in children's issues. I'd never wanted children of my own. It was a very conscious choice and decision I had made. So it was not something I was going to do. But when this child got left at the office, I then called every home in Delhi, because the child was HIV positive. The uncle, all we know is that one uncle of his who was a lawyer had left him. And he told us that there was one child who was negative, who another uncle had adopted. Parents had died. And because this child was positive, no one in the family wanted to keep him. So then we called every care home, every orphanage, every government home in the city. No one wanted to take this child the moment they got to know he was HIV positive. Then my mother actually said that, okay, if that's the case, you need to do something about it. And that's how, and I remember her laughing and saying, this is just retribution. You never wanted children and look what's happened. And it was interesting. That's how we started the care home. And then at one time we went up to, I think, over 50 kids. And now we've decided not to take in any more kids because there's only so much we can expand. And we now have 19 children. The others have all moved out, settled down, all of that have grown up. And we decided consciously not to take any more kids. Instead, what we did do was that we did a lot of training across the country with other homes so that they would take HIV positive children into their homes. That was the idea. I think for women and children, we've always been very much advocating for whether it has working with positive groups, working with other institutions working on HIV issues, because I've always believed that unless you form larger coalitions, you can't impact or change anything. So the home has been an example to show what is possible. Clearly, I remember one of the things people used to tell me, oh, what's the point? The millions of children who need help and you're only helping X number. So I'm like, yes, but at least those I'm helping. Those are being taken care of. And if each one of us does something, everybody gets taken care of. Why do we only think of such a big picture and therefore get paralyzed? So I always laugh and say when people say, you must be a big thinker. Like, I'm not a big picture person at all. As a matter of fact, if I think of the big picture like everyone else, I get paralyzed. But I think if all of us can reach out to help one child, one woman, one man who needs help, one animal that needs taken care of, I don't think there'll be anyone needing any help in this country. We have so much. Why don't we want to share? Why don't we want to take care of our society, of our communities? And when I say this, I'm thinking about everything. I'm thinking about the garbage. I'm thinking about our resources. I'm thinking of all of that.
When I was 17, I came out to my parents that I'm gay. And at that point of time, I was struggling with that if I will know more about anyone who is around this city in Delhi with whom I can chat, with whom I can talk, or that group where I can go. Of course, I was underage, so I was not able to go to any organization. So I had to wait for 18. Once I become 18, I went to NAS Foundation. And there, when I went, I met more people like me who were from the LGBT community. In 2009, I came to know about my HIV status, and today it is 2019. It's been 10 years after knowing Anjali. And the way she is, what I learned from her is, she never get tired, I always seen her like, sometimes I wonder that at this age, when I will be at this age of 60 or 55, will I be able to work so hard? Will I be able to make it out, Will I be able to work for the society or for the community which I am doing right now? And to be very frank, I don't get any answer that I'll be able to do it or not. So whenever I see people like Anjali, Vivek, Ashok, all these people, I get motivated because this is something which I'm learning from them. This is something which they are giving me motivation that if they can do it at the age of 60, I can also do it. So I'm learning that unconditional love you give to the people and work for the cause. So now if you will see, like, she's not only involved in HIV field or LGBT issues, she is also working for animal rights, So she is into all those causes where people don't even bother about it. People don't even think about it, that how much pain maybe these animals are going through. But she can understand the pain. So all this motivation which I'm getting from her and things which I'm getting. So whenever I feel like I speak to her, whenever I feel like I meet her, I try to come to the farm quite often. So I keep myself involved with Anjali ma'am so that I can learn more and more from her. What I felt like, she has no expectations. If she is doing something, she is doing it without any single expectation from the person that I'll be getting back this thing from that person if I'm doing something, And mostly I have seen, like, she wants people to be independent. If she is helping somebody, if she is around with someone, she always makes sure that those people just stand by their own feet, and they go ahead, move on, work, do something in their life. And that is something which is, we all should learn, that no expectation, then no hurt, and she's just doing that.
I remember Anjali from back in the 1990s and early 2000, and her then office, which is of course her residence, D45 Gulmohar Park, used to be that one place where anybody could drop in without any worry, fear or inhibition. And that office used to function as the meeting place, as the like the so-called the adda for all gay, koti, hijra, transgender, any gender or sexual identity, and people could congregate there in that safe space and talk to each other, hold each other, dance, laugh, cry, just be themselves. And as a student, I was, I attended a couple of those meetings of the different groups that used to exist at that time, Hum Joli, Hum Nawaz, and Hum Rahi, depending on, your language. And that really to me was the genesis of the LGBT or the gay community, from starting and identifying and expressing solidarity with one another. And it was from some of those meetings and interactions and the grievances of NAS's outreach workers about how difficult it was for them to reach gay identified or other men having sex with men, about HIV prevention, sexual health, and the role of the police in harassing and arbitrarily arresting or detaining men from public parks and other places, that the idea of the Section 377 litigation was born. And things were very difficult at that time, and it is only somebody as courageous and fearless as Anjali who said, okay, we will file the case and we will go to court on this. But also, something that people may not have noticed about Anjali, that while she agreed and went forward with the case, she was never interested in her personal fame or glory. If indeed she was, she could have filed a petition as Anjali Gopalan, because she was the executive director of the NAS Foundation. But she made a clear decision to file through her organization, the NAS Foundation, representing all that she and her team were doing. So for Anjali, it was never really about her. And during as the case progressed, there was a lot of difficulty and flack that both Anjali and us as Lawyers Collective and my boss, Mr. Anand Grover, both had to personally face, because there was a group that came to the court, to the Delhi High Court and then subsequently to the Supreme Court by the name of Jack. And they were a group that denied that there was any HIV, and they made a lot of personal allegations against Anjali and Naz and against Anand and Lawyers Collective, that we are part of some kind of foreign conspiracy to introduce sex and condoms and all of this, because there's no such thing as HIV, and this litigation is really nothing but a facade. This happened they moved the court in 2003, and they have been relentlessly attacking Anjali and Naz and the Lawyers Collective with this position. But there were times where even the court would ask, the NAS Foundation, they would ask us to produce all the documents of the petitioner and your board members, your resolution, what are you funded, etc. And sometimes these things can rattle you, but none of this rattled Anjali. I think Anjali really stood firm, and she said, we've done this and we will see it through till its very end. So even after the loss in the Supreme Court in 2030, Anjali said, no, we're going to keep the legal fight on, and then that's how we moved in review and curative, and then subsequently when the new petition came, we also pleaded on behalf of Naz in the court. So yeah, I think it's difficult to talk about India's history and the struggle in getting rid of Section 377 without talking about Anjali Gopalan.
Listen, I'm one of those people who always has to be in love all the time with somebody or the other, and unfortunately it's never a whole person. It's someone's shoulder, it's someone's arms, it's someone's lips, it's someone's legs. I don't know why I've never found everything in one. No, but on a more serious note, obviously one has fallen in love and one has had deep relationships. But I think at the end of the day, I liked being single. I do enjoy. I think I can't bear the thought of being responsible to someone for something. For me, that's the hard part. I value my freedom a bit too much. And so I remember someone once told me I was being selfish, and I'm like, yeah, maybe. But I like being selfish. Then if this is being selfish, I'm fine with it. So yeah, one does, I think caring and loving is very different from being attached to someone. Oh, I think truly two or three, two maybe, who I cared about deeply. Yeah. I have not been in a relationship with a woman ever. Of course I love women. I think women are what make this world go round. If it wasn't for women, I don't think we would have survived even this far. Because I think the sensibility of women, the way we think, the way we look at life, really ensures that this world is a better place to live in. But no, all my friends always tell me, it's about time you came out. But unfortunately, no, that hasn't happened yet. I think my younger sister got her beauty, her love for clothes, her love for jewelry, makeup, all of that, which I didn't get. I'm so not interested in any of that. But my mother was someone I admired very deeply because she thought very differently. She was a very giving person, a very caring person. And I think I learned a lot about giving from her. I can't imagine not being single. And it's really funny because people do say, it's nice to have someone. And I always ask all my friends who are married, but are you happy in where you are? And it's interesting, a lot of people tell me they're not, but yet they want me to be married. Of course, not now when I'm 61, but definitely I don't regret not being with someone. Yeah.
Anjali is enough by herself. I would not even think about her as needing someone else.
Yeah.
She is, Anjali in and by herself is enough. So the one thing that really strikes me about Anjali is her willingness to help people. She never says no. Anyone needs any kind of support, help or assistance, Anjali is there. Never turns her back on anyone who's in difficulty or trouble. So, and she even does things which may land her in trouble. For instance, so many of runaway couples who, we keep assisting through court, they have no place to go because their families want to kill them, they don't accept their same-sex relationship. And Anjali saying, please, I'm happy to host them in my house. I'm happy to have them, offer them protection, security. They can stay for as long as they want, and no cop or anyone can come and trouble me. So apart from her fearlessness, her kindness is what also makes Anjali who she is.
Care is a very integral part of who I am. And I've always believed that it is the right of that individual, whether it is human or animal, to get the best care possible. And I think that learning had to do with my journey through NAS. The way, after we started the home for children, for example, I remember a lot of people used to give me grief saying, you're spending too much money on the kids. This is something I used to be told. It used to make me mad. You're the Mercedes of care homes. And I'm like, yes, why not? Just because it's a care home, just because it's an orphanage, why should it not be the best? So for me, when I think of the right, I think it's the right of that child, it's the right of that woman, it's the right of that animal to get the best care possible. We are not doing anyone a favor by providing care. It's an issue of rights. And that's the way I looked at it. And therefore, it had to be the best that I could do. Otherwise, I don't think I would have done it. To be strong and be able to take care of themselves. Which is why I think when I started looking at HIV prevention, and what used to frustrate me no end was the fact that to see young women getting married and getting infected. And coming to me, or people like me, and saying that, look, I've had only one sexual partner. And I'm going, what is it about our prevention that we are failing? The government is spending millions of dollars. Donors are spending so much money. Why are we not being able to get a hold of this? And I remember getting increasingly frustrated by it till one of our ex-board members, who now lives in Brighton, told me, why don't you try something different? And I said, what? I said, I've tried everything. I don't know what to try anymore. So he said, have you thought about sport? And my instinctive reaction was, no. I said, I can't, I don't know anything about it. He said, okay, so what's the worst thing that can happen? So I said, I can fail. So he said, are you worried about it? I said, no. He said, so why don't you give it a shot? At the most, it will fail. And it's turned out to be one of the most powerful programs that is run by NAS today. We work with young women in the age group of 12 to 18, looking at leadership development through sport, and the sport is netball. But more importantly, we also do these sessions with them, and it's unbelievable because now what has happened is, and now this is just anecdotal, it's not a research piece, but what we see is that the sessions are on health, on financial literacy, on environment, things that we think are important for young people today. For all of us actually, not just young people, but all of us should be very aware of these issues. And it's been incredible because a lot of these young girls have been able to push back marriage. They've gotten jobs in places like Standard Chartered, for example, which has been phenomenal. And we had this young woman who actually went to the UN to speak about the importance of sport for women, young women. And she was on the same panel as Hillary Clinton and Bill Gates. Now this is a girl who had never stepped out of the slums of Mumbai. So I think if we decide that we want to do something, the fear of not accomplishing it should not stop us, because you never know what will work. And I've really learned that through experience. Obviously running a place like this, or any place which requires you to take care of life, and we're looking at quality care, it can't be cheap. So right now, for example, we have a staff of 19. And it costs us nearly 8 lakhs a month to run this place. But I think it's really important to run a place like this is because you can show that it's possible to take care of those who really need it. And actually, I think someone like me, at least I can talk for myself, I do what I do because I get so much more back than what I give. I think my life is, I couldn't have been in a better place than now. I get so much back, so much love, so much care from not only the humans around me, because I must acknowledge that without them, I don't think I could do any of this, of course, but also from the animals. So I think in many ways I feel I'm really very satisfied with my life. I couldn't have asked for more.